Phyllis, great to speak to you once again. If we do see Mitsotakis successful in his bid for power this weekend, what will you expect to change in Greek political economic priorities?
Well, it's likely that Kyriakos Mitsotakis will win this weekend's elections if polls are anything to go by. What's clear is that he's made tax cuts the focus of his reform agenda, as well as a focus on entrepreneurs. So I think we're likely to see an increased focus to the private sector and away, say, for example, from the public sector, if he is indeed elected on Sunday.
And what difference is this going to make to things like unemployment rate in Greece and those areas of the economy, Phyllis, that are still struggling?
That's an interesting question, because it's very important that he gets that right, the unemployment question. And it looks as though the pathway to reducing the unemployment rate will be through boosting entrepreneurs, boosting entrepreneurship, making it easier for people to start and maintain businesses. He's made that a focus of sort of the key pathway to reducing unemployment.
And what do you expect what kind of reaction do you expect from Greek markets? Of course, I was talking there about the strong performance of the Greek stock market. It's coming off a low base. Greek bonds have done well. They can't be bought by the ECB, but there seems to be some expectation that perhaps there'll be more QE at the periphery in general for European markets. Are any of those factors supporting the Greek story at the moment?
I think so. I mean, there's definitely been a Mitsotakis effect on the markets, on the stock market, as you say here, and on the bond markets as well. What's not clear, and what may be I guess a cause for caution for the markets, is what sort of fiscal leeway the new administration will have for those tax cuts. So they're looking for very optimistic growth. I've heard a 4% growth rate talked about. That's over double the current growth rate in Greece. So it's not clear where the leeway, where the sort of fiscal comfort will come from for the tax cuts that he's talking about. So the market reaction has been justified to a certain degree, but it's not clear whether or not I think this sort of market moves will continue unless we see
Phyllis,
the actual reforms implemented.
Yeah, Phyllis, how should we interpret what is expected to be the result here then, in terms of how the Greek people have experienced austerity, feel about the left of European politics? Because they experimented with Syriza and with Tsipras, and now they're rejecting him and they're going instead to the centre-right. How should we see that move?
Well, there is, I think, when the key polls here are indicating that people are hopeful with the new administration, what's really important is what you mentioned before, which is the unemployment rate and incomes. So they're going to have to engage in reforms that do feed through to higher incomes for people, higher earnings, sustainable employment, because the little improvement we've seen in the labor market here has been in temporary employment and in seasonal employment, if you like. Long-term unemployment in Greece is still high. So yes, the focus on the private sector is important, on entrepreneurship is important, but we will need to see, I think, sort of secondary reforms enacted to boost sort of the labor side of things.